Welcome, everybody, to this panel on leveraging Agentic AI to build smarter connectivity systems. As the MC mentioned, my name is Soledad Luca-Etena, and I am part of the Giga team, this joint initiative between UNICEF and ITU to connect all the schools in the world using various technologies. We are joined in this lightning panel of 20 minutes by these incredible panelists. We are going to go straight into this and hopefully give you a sense of how these innovative technologies have real-life applications with a social conscience. So first, to start with you, Ivan. You have a lot of experience both in academia and in industry working with AI, PhD in AI. You work with applied sciences or lead applied sciences at Giga. I'm aware that we have a varied audience. Can you take us a little bit of an overview of what Agentic AI is and how we would focus onto it?
Oh, well. We start with the easy questions then. All right, perfect. So let's see. First, I just thank you to my colleagues here and to you, Sol, and to everybody that's here. First, a bit of a disclaimer. I think in AI has been around for a long time, more than 70 years, especially after World War II. And I think there's been a lot of terms that have been thrown around with time, and sometimes they might mean slightly different things depending on when and where. So I'm going to give you my perspective of this. And I think the starting point is the difference in the two concepts of general AI versus partial AI. So general AI meaning an AI that can do anything, almost behave like a human, versus partial AI, which is let's use AI techniques, let's use artificial intelligence approaches to solve a particular problem or to perform a task. I think nowadays, in the area of LLMs and generative AI, I think we're reusing this concept of agent as this partial AI, and agent has been used also for a long time. But I think nowadays we're resurfacing the term of AI agent more in a context of automation. So what before was an agent that was a partial AI that was meant to solve a specific problem, now it's still an agent that it's trying to do that autonomously, and therefore it's more of a focus on performing a task rather than solving a problem. And then that leads us to sort of the conceptually simpler of these things, which is agentic AI, which is basically how are we to combine a set of agents to perform a more complex task. And basically it's about how are these agents going to communicate, how are they going to cooperate, how are they going to interact.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, and thanks for taking the difficult question there. I mean, it's such a wide technology. We all have different understandings about it. So let's go a little bit now from the theory and the broadness of it to something more practical. Lina, in your extensive experience, could you tell us a little bit more about what you're working on in LLMs, Gen AI, and Agentic AI, specifically just some of the opportunities and use cases?
Thank you so much for this question, and I'm happy here to join my fellow panelists in this insightful panel. So mainly we're working on integrating large language models and generative AI into telecom networks, as Ivan mentioned, to automate some particular task. But the 2 points that I would like to emphasize on that, maybe more into what we are discussing in this panel, is how these large language models and generative AI models are bridging the digital gap that we are having. So before, for people to interact with these models and to work with these models required deep technical knowledge and hands-on experience in order to deal with these agents that are driven by AI. But I think in the future we will see more opportunities for a wider range in the community to work on these agents, because it enables this natural language interfaces which we can interact with, and we can we use these tools in order to get access to this technology. Another thing also I would like to highlight on the importance of integrating large language models and generative AI into the telecom industry is that although they started as language models, but we are starting now to see more reasoning models. So these models are no longer just as interface or conversational agents that we are talking to, but it's more into reasoning models that you can give data to, and they give you more insights, and then it will help further in automating tasks that we need, for example, in spectrum management, and infrastructure design, planning, rollouts, and so on.
Thank you so much for that. In the application, Lindsey, to you, deploying these agents in the field, what are some of the human aspects that we have to bear in mind, which are not easy to answer, right?
Let me see if I can answer that in 3 minutes. Yeah, so at DevelopMetrics, we build large language models for the humanitarian field and for the international development field. So we built specific models for USAID on how to really program better to make better choices. So for example, in schools, we could look at in conflict zones, we could look at children's pictures and analyze hundreds of thousands of them using large language models specifically built to understand children's perspectives as expressed through photos, and to get a better sense of what kind of programming we should direct towards them. And so what you have to do with these types of agentic AI that are making decisions for you is try to figure out what is the risk profile. How dangerous is it if we get the question wrong, if we recommend the wrong solution? And this is a huge ethical implication right now, because if you think about it in the humanitarian space or the development space, a lot of NGOs, a lot of governments are using GPT to say, how should we empower women in Ghana right now? You wouldn't believe it, but they are. And so if you think about who are the creators of these models, what is the perspective that they have, it's a largely US male-centric model that's being used to create programming for women, children, indigenous communities. And so one of the key ethical considerations is, how do you bring those voices into the conversation, and how do you get that data and make sure that those perspectives are being represented? And not just getting the data, but also when you're cleaning the data, we see a lot of issues too. So a lot of the outliers are being left out of these algorithms, when those outliers are what have some of the most important data. And also, what benchmarks are you using? And so we're seeing a lot of conversations actually here and about how important it is to bring in these underserved perspectives. But then when you look at the actual funding available to do this work, it's almost non-existent. So it's a huge ethical gap at the moment.
Thank you for bringing that up, and I think that we're very much talking in Giga about collaborations, and that it's going to take these different layers of understanding. Okay, can you reach the right data to incorporate that? What assumptions are we making when we take these decisions or program for these decisions, right? Just taking it to something specific, I'm starting again with a round of questions. We're starting with you, Lindsey. Just maybe one example for the audience of what your company is doing that sort of incorporates or encapsulates these principles you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, sure, as I mentioned, there's not a whole lot of funding available right now, but before USAID was unfortunately dissolved, we were doing a lot of work with USAID on this exact issue. So one case study that we were able to complete was in Papua New Guinea. We were doing gender-based violence programming, and so we built a model for USAID based on all USAID data and other donor data, other reports, to see what would be the most effective interventions to reduce gender-based violence in this one community. Of course, we came up with the solutions. But then, instead of actually just going ahead and implementing it, we got voice data through WhatsApp from the women in the community. So we collected hundreds of thousands of voice notes and then analyzed that, and it completely changed our programming. So instead of what we were going to do, which was kind of community groups, we ended up focusing our entire programming on sorcery. So sorcery accusation, accusing women of being witches, was the #1 cause of gender-based violence in this community, which came up when we got this local data. So then we did a lot of education and work around what is a witch, what is witchcraft, why that shouldn't be cause for gender-based violence. And so when you bring in these perspectives, you get such more nuanced, valuable data instead of kind of whitewashing with one perspective.
Thank you so much. Yeah, really reflect on tech should work for people. And this is about the human stories. How is this really relating to people's lived experience? Right? Back to Lina. Not only do we have to have this real understanding of the user and the people that are impacted on that, but it has to be technically sound. Can you talk a little bit about some of the technical aspects that you've been working on, please?
I hope I'll not go very boring with the technical aspect, but we'll try to keep it like a high level. I think one of the most important aspects to work on in such a project is to ensure that we are developing standardized open source platforms or APIs that allow different agents to communicate to each other. Now we have a lot of LLM agents that have been developed over the last couple of years, but the main issue here is for example, if Giga is running a particular agent and then you wanted to communicate with an agent deployed as a particular school, most probably these will not be able to communicate if they are running in different platforms. So they have to be running on this, using the same agent type, the same platform, and so on. So how we can build more flexible, standardized protocols for these agents to communicate, to enable us to scale up these deployments of agents in different countries, cross governments, cross vendors. This is, I think, one of the most technical aspects. The second one, I think it's more to focus on the fact that currently high-performing large language models are English language models, which is very limiting when we are trying to scale up into different countries, different organizations, different layers in the community. So it's important for us to focus also on deploying large language models in different languages, not only as translators, but as models that capture the culture and the policies and the regulations of a particular country that is running it.
Yeah. Thank you for once again, bringing this kind of parallel between needing to understand the use and what we're trying to deliver on the promise of technology, but if the technical and the standardization sort of elements are not there, you cannot really deliver on that. And so, thank you. Back to Ivan. So, Giga aims to connect the unconnected, using schools and health clinics as these touch points to reaching all the areas, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how does this topic lean towards this mission?
So I think, as you said, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect the unconnected, and that typically means connecting rural, remote areas in developing countries. And we need new technologies and new, more optimized methods to doing that. So I think it touches perfectly with what we've been saying. Lindsey's been working on this type of deployment in developing places, knows what are the hurdles in the field. Yeah. Lina has been working on standardization and state-of-the-art AI agents communicating and agentic AI. And on top of that, talking about open source, which is what we do at Giga. Everything we do is open source. So I think what is not to take as a home as a take-home message for us. I think what we need to do is try to convince them to collaborate with us. Yes. As much as we can. Convince everyone in the audience also to help us connect the unconnected and visit our booth here at AI for Good. And I don't want to speak more, I'd rather let them have final thoughts
Please.
About this. That's more relevant than what I have to say.
Absolutely. Final thought
for the audience. My final thought. Yeah. Okay. I guess my core thought is thinking about how can all of us be agents of data collection? Where can we find data for underserved people and help bring that to be used by whatever the purpose you may have, so that we can get underrepresented voices into the discussion, because right now, as I mentioned, there's not a lot of funding for it, and so we're seeing that the most impact is actually coming from volunteers collecting, curating, cleaning data sources so that we can diversify the conversation and create a more equal world rather than a very, 3 or 4 model-centric world that is driving a lot of the decisions, because we'll see what our future would look like if we have such a limited perspective. And so there's a lot of ways you can get involved with that. Happy to talk more if you're interested.
I think I would again emphasize on a final thought related to open sourcing tools in terms of enabling a diverse range of the community to have access to these tools, to ensure that we are somehow eliminating these geographical barriers when it comes to using the models and when it comes to using the compute, also in terms of data fusion and so on, how we can unify these tools and not only open source tools that are, I would say, less performing, but also powerful tools to make it available for everyone.
Thank you. Last thought?
Oh. Do I get always the toughest? I have to follow this.
Yes.
I think we're entering a new era, and I think things are going to happen quickly. I think for us also, I think as UNICEF and the ITU, I think we have a responsibility to know what's happening, but also be responsible on how we use it and how to implement it. And I think safety, biases and ethics of all of these tools is something very important. Perhaps it's for another panel. But I think, yes, we have to be on top of what's happening. We have to try to use it for what we need to. And again, connecting the unconnected and talking about LLMs and agentic AI for the telecom sector, it fits right into that. We have to be cautious and stay on the right side of the hype, I would say.
Absolutely. And I'm going to leave you with those incredible thoughts from the professionals. Thank you again. Please, you can have more information about Giga and the speakers. And thank you for listening. Thank you.